We've been talking actually a lot about USA hockey and hockey south of the border that has changed so much over the years, certainly during my time, where the acceleration of the players themselves, the talent, the grassroots hockey, and where hockey is played is just so grossly different than, for myself growing up. If someone said where they play hockey, I just say Minnesota. And in Canada, as you know, Dave, Minnesota kind of is Canada. And when I moved to Eugene, Oregon, and went to 8th grade, when I started talking, the one guy goes, "Hey, are you from Minnesota?" I said, "No, I don't talk like that. I don't talk like I'm from Fargo. Do I? Do I sound like that? Because I don't talk like that." And by the way, if we talk to someone from Minnesota, there is a little bit of that going on there. It's actually one of my favorite accents, and I actually really do like it. Now, Kimberly Weiss is joining us here this morning. And what is her story? Well, the Maryland Black Bears of the North American Hockey League, which some up here would know a lot, some may not, but they announced that she is the assistant bench coach, so an assistant junior coach. And when you look at sort of the evolution of what has happened with women in hockey, that also is a remarkable story, because right now, as huge as that is, and that is a first thing. I think those of us that deal in the hockey world, those who play in the hockey world, I don't know how hard this is to accept anymore. I mean, when you see Haley Wickenheiser and what Haley has done, and if you spend any time around with Haley, it's just like talking to another hockey person. There really isn't almost this thought of, you mean a girl? Because that to me is okay. I'll give you a story. Well, first let's bring on Kimberly. Kimberly, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. And by the way, congratulations. This is awesome.
Thank you, Mike and David. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So in going back to probably your personal experience, I'll go back to mine, and I'll go back to like the 70s, where in my small town, all of a sudden there was something called girls hockey. And that's how they called it too. It wasn't women's, it was girls hockey. And so we were like, girls hockey? You mean ringette? No, girls hockey. And if you were a dude, if you were a guy, and your girlfriend, and they said, your girlfriend doesn't play hockey. No way, man. No. Like it was somehow derogatory, that there was an insinuation that it wasn't feminine, that it wasn't, all these things. And this is
Absolutely.
This is not the 50s, Kim. This is the 70s. And it really wasn't until the 80s where there was a little bit of a fight for acceptance. Now, we don't have that now, but I'm curious for you in playing hockey and being part of the hockey world, did you ever find it, or do you still find that there is a slight resistance to a woman being in hockey?
Definitely growing up, I grew up outside Washington, D.C., and a little bit after the 70s, Mike, but it felt very similar to what you were talking about. I was the only girl in my classroom in school that played hockey, and sometimes the only kid, like even the boys weren't playing hockey. So definitely there was that kind of that foreign idea when my parents would tell their friends that they had to take their daughter to hockey. They would say field, and even coaching now in the area, my girls team that I was coaching for the last 10 years, we'd be in the airport at Reagan National, and they'd say, "Oh, what kind of team are you guys?" And you're like, "Soccer." What? I'd say, "No, we're a hockey team." And they'd say, "Field hockey?" Like, "No, ice." And I never thought I had to clarify hockey with ice in front of it. But in our area, you kind of do a little bit. And especially, I would say, having a ponytail or being a woman, I think you have to clarify it a little bit still, unfortunately, in the South, as you're calling us.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know what, Kim, and it's funny because we're also talking to somebody that is the all-time leading scorer at Trinity, a two-time captain, somebody that was basically grew up in Trois-Rivières, went to McGill. I mean, hockey's been in your blood from day one. How did you get the bug, Kim, and what pushed you towards this outstanding sport?
Yeah, so my mom's Canadian. She's the one who grew up in Trois-Rivières and went to McGill, and my dad grew up in Connecticut. And neither of them played. My mom obviously didn't have much of the opportunity, as Mike was talking about when she was growing up there. But they just love the game. And my dad's a big engineer by trade. And so he's loved ice rinks and Zambonis and kind of the sport from that aspect. And so my family actually runs ice rinks as our family business. And so that's kind of how I got the bug, was just they both loved it. I have a brother who's 2 years older. And so when I was, a year and a half, 2 years old, I was thrown in front of the net in the basement and had tennis balls shot at me. And somehow that made me love the sport and not hate it. And here I am, 30 years later, coaching for a living and being in rinks and staying in a dorm room right now at hockey camp because I love this sport so much.
So as much as we're talking about this as being historically a first, because it is, does it feel natural to you that this is something that's happened? Does it feel surreal, or does it feel like in the progression of what your career has been, that this was a natural next step?
I think it's natural in the game now, as you were saying. I think hopefully people are looking for just the best human being for that role, whether it's player development, whether it's a coach, a GM. I think for a long time that list of applicants has been very narrowed just by the people making decisions, as opposed to just kind of casting a wider net and seeing who's out there and finding the best people for the job. As you said, the headline is that I'm the first, but I'm not. There's been other women breaking this barrier across our sport and other sports. And I'm hoping I got hired because I'm a great coach and I can make our team better and make our team win, and not because I happen to be a female.
Yeah. So Kim, when you accept this job with the Black Bears, how does it all come about? Are you seeking new opportunity? Are they seeking a quality assistant coach? Because prior to this, you're very comfortable at the job you have. You probably could move up through the system right to the national team, even higher with any women's program in the States, in the Canadian side of things. But what makes you make this jump to the Black Bears, which is a pretty prestigious junior team across the United States?
Yeah, I think from their perspective, they were just adding a second assistant. They had a lot of success this year, made it to the second round of the playoffs. And I think they felt as an organization, they were ready to invest a little bit more in their coaching staff and try to get some more eyes and more ideas in the coaching room. And for me, I was lucky enough last year during COVID to get involved with the NHLCA women's program that's run by Lindsay Arkin, the NHLCA president. And through that program, I got to network with a lot of people, both in the NHL and just women across the US and Canada that are tremendous leaders in our sport. And so I think that kind of gave me the bug to do something a little different than what I've been doing. And like you said, I've had a great job and a great experience with the Washington Pride program that I've been with. But kind of going through that program and talking to coaches, I kind of got the itch to challenge myself and do something new this season.
We're in conversation with Kimberly Weiss of the Maryland Black Bears of the North American Hockey League, joining us here on Newstalk Sauga 960 Raw. Mike Richards. And so then we look at, and as you said, which I always think is interesting. I'm the son of a coach and family of coaches. So, there's a certain, as they say, stink of the locker room that we're just very comfortable with. It really
sure.
doesn't matter what sport it is. Like we could be driving. I remember, we, as I said, we traveled quite a bit and camped a lot. So if we're going across, the northern part of the United States and we go by, if there's a game, it didn't matter what sport it was. If there was some sort of high school championship thing, my dad's pulling over and we're watching it. It could be baseball. It could be anything, right? It's just because that's when you're a family that grows up with that stuff. You just are enamored with the world of coaching. So when we get to this point now in our society, which is as you mentioned, just pick the best person, the best human being, the one with the qualities that are going to get you to a level that you want. It also comes with, from a coaching perspective, what you like to do, what your tendency is, what you like to see. It's not about male or female. It's about, okay, if this is for instance, a Weiss coached team, how would you know? What would the characteristic of a team and the things that you like to do on the ice? What would someone say beyond everything else we just talked about? Just as you as a coach, how do they know it's your team? What do you like to do?
That's a great question. It's actually probably the best question I've been asked recently. I think for me, number one is just competitiveness. We want to play fast, but that compete, whether that's on the forecheck in the corners or the net front. I think you want a team that's relentless throughout the entire game, and no matter what the scoreboard is showing. And then the other thing, I guess, would be, like, very simply and very quickly, would just be togetherness. You want to see a lot of puck support and being able to make plays with their head up and find options and to attack and defend as a unit. So when we're on the rush, we have our D's coming up into the play and contributing offensively, and defensively we have forwards that are being selfless and back checking and blocking shots, and so we're all contributing in both ends of the ice.
Yeah, outstanding. I know training camp's coming up for the Black Bears in August, but there is a significant game going on tonight, Kim. So I have to get your opinion on this too before we kind of sign off here. Canadians, Lightning, Stanley Cup Finals. Do you have a side as far as who you think might win this, and how nice has it been, watching a Stanley Cup playoff that has been very, very good, because even though we've had such an irregular year, things seem to be going back to normal, and a lot of it has to do with sport.
Absolutely. That's a tough question to put me in as an American on a Canadian show. So that's I'm gonna choose wisely. I think what the Habs have done has been unbelievable. They've got a lot of momentum. I'm a big Cole Caulfield fan, so I'm gonna say that they keep rolling and they'll take game one. I think it's gonna be a great series regardless of who wins it. But I think that the Habs are gonna surprise some people south of the Canadian-American border. I think they got what it takes to steal this game.
Yeah, Kim, also, we're in the Toronto area, so there's a lot of people who are not sure. Trust me, there's a lot of people who are probably
I know that you're not, but I'd hope that with a Canadian team in the finals for the first time in a long time, that you guys are supporting. I know it's not the greatest relationship in normal times, but the last year and a half has been nothing short of normal. So.
Yeah, sort of like a Vikings fan cheering for the Packers. Well, I hope they go on and do well.
I think you know who I support. Kim. I think you got an idea.
Like Maple Leaf. Well, you know what? Thanks so much for joining us here this morning. And look, we want to keep in touch too. I mean, as you move on and as you do things, I think it's a great story, and I think for hockey to move forward, and I think hockey does, quite frankly, get it. I sometimes we're always afraid that, there's that old boys club, things get archaic and you don't move forward. Well, I don't think hockey's in the hockey world, quite frankly, community. I think it's been the opposite. I think it's been very, very open and inclusive, which at times, I got to be honest, as a Canadian, sometimes it hasn't really come across that way, but I think they've done a really good job. This is a part of it. And, I really am looking forward to talking to you again and seeing where this goes, because I think for you, even though you've been years at this, I think this possibly could be the start. This could be the start of something really quite remarkable, and we're kind of cheering for you. So you certainly take care. Best of luck, and I know we'll talk to you again sometime.
Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate that. Have a great day.
That is Kimberly Weiss. She is the Black Bears assistant coach in the North American Hockey League. So you're talking about the elite junior programs, and certainly in terms of Kim's background, you don't really get more elite than that. And what a wonderful chance this is, really, for everybody to get better. So I appreciate that here this morning. And I think Todd Woodcroft, I didn't mention that. Kim, you're still there. Yep. Mr. Woodcroft. He does he owe you any money? I just thought I should. Sometimes he owes people money.
I won't comment on that part of it, but yeah, I know Todd just again through the small network of the coaching world and the NHLCA connected us over a year ago, and he's been a great supporter of me and my career. So yeah, but I won't tell you how much money he owes me.
yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Join the club.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. It's funny too, because we talk about those. Geez, I haven't been in one in a long time, but coaches conferences, in terms of networking. I mean, you realize how big, when you start talking about North America, because, when we're talking about that sport, if we're just dealing with North America, it's great that you can share those kinds of ideas. And it's amazing what you do actually get from conferences. I know there was a time where people really weren't into them and it seemed to be a bit of a waste of time. I would argue that, quite frankly, it's really the opposite. And when you start bringing in people, I said, like Kim, when you talk about Todd Woodcroft, the one thing, that we find, I always find, him ultimately very fascinating. His take on talking about human beings. I don't know if we have a better guy than Todd Woodcroft who comes on this show. I mean, he's well spoken. He's got that humanity. And look, and as I said, coming from old school, I mean, you dealt with some of those old coaches like Dave, like we had in junior. It was like Braveheart. I mean, I think literally there were heads on the ice on some of those junior practices. I'm like, I think that guy just cut that guy's head off. Yeah, that's the way we like it. Oh, all right, okay. You go back and you're a 14-year-old. Yeah. And when no one's looking, you're 14 years old and you're crying into your goalie pads because you're afraid. It's come a long way since that time, but it's a great point. So we thank him so much for joining us here this morning.